He was going to do the entire album. This is insane. In Latvian. He was going to learn Latvian.
No way.
Because he thought the language was beautiful and because it meant that he would have to do less work as a lyricist to make things sound beautiful.
All right, welcome to Church Jams Now, the podcast where three former youth group kids and current music nerds deep dive into Christian music from the 90s and 2000s. I, of course, am your co-host, Kylan Savage. With me, as always, is Mr. TJ Smith.
Yeah, you are not without me.
Ah, okay, there we go. There it is.
Nice.
Good,
and, of course, our beautiful producer, Josh Olson.
I'm here, too. Hi.
And we have a guest this week. We have a very special guest. We have Mike Almquist on.
Woo!
Mike, do you want to give yourself a little intro? Do you want to give us some credits? Why the hell are you on our show?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well,
I'm assuming I'm on this podcast because I am affiliated with mewithoutYou, and I'm assuming that's why.
No, it's
Certainly.
mostly your football takes on Twitter. That's what we're here to talk
okay,
about.
right
So,
on.
no.
Cool. Yeah.
No, longtime manager of mewithoutYou, artist, lots of other things. We're gonna get into that a little bit. Well, I'll just go ahead and say we just covered Engine of a Million Plots.
Okay.
And we talked a
right
lot
on.
about the artwork, and so.
Oh, did you?
Oh yeah.
I need to go back
yeah.
and listen to that podcast.
Well, it hasn't come out yet.
It hasn't come
At
out
the
yet.
time of this recording,
I'm
it hasn't come out
excited
yet.
to listen to that podcast because that's
Yeah,
a
man.
very, very, very special record to me.
It really is.
to us as well.
Yeah.
Like,
It is for me too. I came into it blind. I didn't listen to it when it came out, but both of these guys, it's a big record for them. So
Oh yeah, it's by far and away the best 5-hour album, and I am beyond proud to have worked on it as closely
Yeah.
as I did. So
Yeah, as you should be. Like, I think you were, just as much a part of kind of shaping the ethos of the album or responding to what they were doing. And, I'll definitely have some questions about that.
Sure.
well, fuck it.
But-
Let's
How do you
get
know?
into it.
How do you
Let's
know
just
that?
dive right
How do you
into
know
that.
that? How do you know
sorry,
that?
so early.
I'm excited, guys. I'm just so
All the
stoked.
Me Without You fans are like, what? We were talking about 5 hour?
Hang on,
Left
5 hours,
turn.
like,
Curveball.
sorry,
Just
guys.
kidding.
We're gonna talk about ska music.
I'm still, from when we recorded that episode, I'm still waking up daily with Zen and the Art of Xenophobia stuck in my head. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm on, that's the vibe I'm going in.
I
Well,
hear you.
I really do feel like that album is kind of singular in a lot of ways. Like we talked in the episode a lot about how it's rock with horns rather than ska. Like, and it was this moment of evolution for the band.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I honestly, Mike, would just love to hear you speak about how it came to be that you did
Oh,
the
wait.
art. Like,
Okay, I know I came in really hot, but I do want to backtrack a little bit. I forget. I'm trying to be professional here.
It's all good.
So, one thing we like to start our interviews with, as I said in the intro, we deep dive into Christian music from the 90s and 2000s. And I'm always very interested in origin stories.
Mm.
So I would love to know, Mike, what is your relationship with quote unquote Christian music? Like, what did you grow
Sure.
up listening to? How did you get into the scene that you're in?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the church. My uncle Steve was a pastor in York, Pennsylvania. My family went there, and I was part of the youth group. So like that was kind of like foundational. It's like you go to church every Sunday, and like your
Right.
uncle is the pastor, but then like youth group came along, and then suddenly it's more than just like Sunday school, and now it's like a social scene.
Right.
And then we took like I don't know how to call it, a field trip. We went to Creation. I'm going to say 96, 97, maybe.
Cool.
I'll say Creation 96. Yeah, 96. And we get to our campsite, we set up all our stuff, and then someone's like, hey, let's go down and watch this band play.
for the uninitiated, Mike, what is Creation?
Oh, sorry. Creation is a Christian music festival that they did in Pennsylvania, and then also I think later someplace out west.
In
Like
Seattle?
In
Because
Seattle or
King-
Washington
West
State.
Coast
Yeah, right.
somewhere. Yep.
Okay, yeah. But it started out, I think, in like, I don't even know when it started out. Maybe in like the Jesus Freak movement. I don't know.
Okay.
I could be totally wrong. It started out in 1996 for me. That's when and we went down
That's
to the
the
main
only year
stage.
that matters.
That's the only year that matters. We went down to the main stage, and Five Iron Frenzy was playing on the
No
main
way.
stage, like the first band of the entire thing.
Nice.
And Reese Roper was in his cow suit,
Of course.
and like jumping around on stage, and there were people skanking in a pit, and I was like, how old was I at the time? So I was 84. Do the math. I was 12, right?
12.
So I'm like 12 years old. I'm watching these like these punks like skank in a mud pit at this Christian music festival where this band is playing like fast music with horns, and it was just so like there's something about like those kids like in the pit dancing that was just like, what is this? And what is that on stage?
Right.
And I bought Upbeats and Beatdowns, and
Nice.
when I went to like and I bought the Move to Bremerton EP by MXPX.
No way.
Not even Life in General, the Move to Bremerton EP.
The EP. Wow.
Yeah, EP. Then I brought that home to my parents. I just was like, this is what I'm listening to now. And I would just listen. I had such a hunger for Five Iron Frenzy, like you could not believe. Like I just obsessed. Like I carried a picture of them in my wallet. Like I was like,
no way.
Which picture was it?
if I had to guess, is probably from the 7-ball shoot where they're all kind of like crowded around like a mini putt.
Right.
That's
what I
immediately
think
the
it
one
is.
I thought of when you said
it's
that. It's probably the
really,
putt one. Yeah,
that's a really great photo shoot.
Classic.
But yeah, and then that kind of started. At that point, it was like I had a hunger for Five Iron and that kind of music. I was feeling like, let's listen to punk music and let's listen to ska music. And so I would just like scour web crawler like on AOL to like try and find new bands, and I'd find like Pie Tasters or Mephistopheles or whatever else, and I just anything I could get my hands on that was even remotely close to Five Iron.
Nice.
But Five Iron was always top tier, still is top tier in terms of those bands, in terms of their output.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Can you give me some other examples of some other bands that you really got into around this time?
You know, I'm trying to think. I mean, it would be like I probably got into like around that time. No Big Fish was another band because they were like ska adjacent, and they had a big radio hit.
Were you into Squad 5-0 at all?
Yeah, I saw their set a couple times, and they were super fun. Like, loved them. And I know some of those guys now.
Cool.
And they don't look anything like they did, with like the big hair, like the cutoff shirts, and but they put on such a freaking badass show. They were so much fun. They're so much fun. Rowdy, just like party boys.
Yeah, just huge.
But like a Christian.
Yeah,
right.
Christian adjacent. I couldn't quite tell. I like it when it's kind of like, is this appropriate? Yep. Is this appropriate? Yep. Does MXPX sing enough songs about God? Do they sing any songs about God now that I think about it?
These are the hard-hitting questions, man.
Yeah, it's like, and then it's like, how important is any of that? We're just having fun. But yeah, it was Squad. I really appreciated, but like I never really delved into anything like as much as I did with like specifically Five Iron, and then some MXPX. Those being probably the bigger ones there.
Nice.
Slowly, eventually I did get Life in General, and then Slow and Go the Way Buffalo, and then I can't remember where I really fell off. What's the next one? Ever passing moment, ever present moment. What's it called?
Right. So,
the ever passing moment.
Yeah. I didn't really listen to that one as much, but I got back into like a couple of their EPs later that I really liked.
Nice.
But and I just like anything. Like I would get like ska comps, like Christian ska comps. Do you know? Oh gosh, I can't even remember what this thing was called, but it was pretty low grade looking like compilation of a bunch of like no name bands.
Nice.
But I just was like,
we'll put it out on Twitter.
I guarantee Danny from Sadie Hawkins Pod is gonna know it. He will for sure know it.
For sure. He'll know.
I feel like it's something like, it's not Scallelujah because that's an Insiders record.
Right.
I love the Insiders too. And I like the first OC Supertones record, and I like some of Strike Back. But they got too polished, too pop for me.
They did
they became very CCM, very safe. And like I'm telling you, I'm just like
you were like, I'm gone. This isn't edgy enough for Mike.
Five Iron pushed the boundaries. They just did.
They did, man.
They did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. but yeah, I can't, thinking back, I don't even remember who I was really into. Yeah. And I don't even, they didn't even love this band. Value Pack. It's just a band that I remember from this time, but I never really like have like one of their records. It's just the only name that comes to mind when you mention it. But I was more into like less than Jake and Real Big Fish, the Boss Tones record before Let's Face It, Question the Answers. I like those kinds of records.
Basically, you were like the original hipster. You liked the stuff before they exploded. Before they popped off.
Again, I think Let's Face It is a more polished version of the Boss Tones, and it's got obviously their biggest hit, but it's I like the raw edge of their older stuff.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for those albums that had a little more like hunger and like rawness.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
More spirit.
TJ, this sounds like our conversations about the Killers.
Yep.
About how I only like that first record.
What?
Yeah.
What?
This is
Mike, don't worry,
TJ,
he's wrong.
No.
It's fine.
He is very wrong.
Yeah, I know.
I'm with you, Mike.
He is very wrong. In fact, Hot Fuss is their
no, it's the only one. It's the only one
Big
in
feelings.
which it doesn't feel like Brendan Flowers is bored of being in the Killers,
because in Hot Fuss he was still figuring himself out.
You think that Brandon Flowers sounds bored on Pressure Machine? That album is so phenomenal. I listened to it today.
I love this.
Like
none of this is going in the podcast.
Oh my gosh, the Killers.
Mike, you're my favorite. You're officially my favorite guest.
Cool. What's the best Killers album? If the people who like the Killers actually like the Killers.
I mean, Kylan's gonna say Hot Fuss. I really like Battleborn, honestly.
Bingo, dude.
Yeah.
Wow. Battleborn is top tier. It's so. My dad is the one who turned me on to Battleborn because he really likes the Killers too, and
Oh, that's so cool.
And I just was like, yeah, the Killers are cool. Like I like Hot Fuss, and there's some cool songs on Samstown. He was like Battleborn, and I was like, I looked at the album cover, and I was like, gosh, the Killers are so cringy with some of their artwork.
And it's zany, man.
But then I went to my friend. My friend Mike Henningen got married, and his wife Steph, their father-daughter dance was to. I'm drawing a blank on the song now, but it's one of the last ones. Like, don't break character. You got a lot of heart. And I was watching this father dance. What is that song called? Does anybody know?
Ooh.
I'm just drawing a blank.
I don't. If it's not on Hot Fuss, I don't know it.
It's not on Hot Fuss. You don't care. But I was watching the father-daughter dance.
Is it the way it was?
Maybe no. God, doesn't matter. I cried watching the father-daughter dance at the wedding, and I just was like, okay, what record is this on? I was like, oh, this is on Battleborn. And then I put on Battleborn, and I was like, blown away by how big that record is. It's awesome.
It really is. Like it's like.
And now I love Pressure Machine. Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Most underrated band, I think. It's like,
Be
how
Still.
is this band not
Be Still?
Be Still. Thank you.
That's what it is. Yep.
Which is a Me Without You track. So like, how do I not recall that?
Nice.
Oh yeah. Be Still. Boom.
Well, that seems like a great transition into the Me Without You of it all.
Okay, great.
Why not?
I don't want to talk about Killers anymore, guys.
It's
I
fine.
can talk about Killers for the rest of my life.
I was like, I hope I can talk about the Killers. I literally was like,
you're gonna shoehorn it in either way.
Mike, you and I can start a different.
Okay, we'll start a Killers.
Y'all can start a Killers podcast.
You're Killersing me.
Cool. All right.
It'll be real. Like
that's it.
Yeah, I get it.
And
yeah, cool.
Just dumb.
Well, I'm glad we did. I feel like I know Mike a little bit better. I was going to be a little thrown off. We went into all the cool stuff. I was like, who is this guy?
Who is this guy?
Yeah.
He's a massive Killers fan, and I love it.
Yeah.
Now we know that. Yeah.
I will. Okay. Well, we talked about Five Iron.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we talked about, well, we're going to get more into it. Well, because the thing is, we talked about on our Engine of a Million Plots episode, I apparently have a reputation online of someone who like hates ska.
He's our resident ska miser.
I'm the resident ska miser.
Okay.
Because I hate joy and and I'm just a sad emo boy.
I love misery.
Yeah. Well, by the way, I just want to make it clear: a lot of ska is very bad.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of it's very bad.
That's going to be my new ringtone. I'm just going to cut that clip.
Yeah, cool.
I love the ringtone joke in 2023. That's so great.
Right, I know.
Yeah, exactly. My phone's constantly on silent.
I know. I miss being able to like
50?
customize your ringtone.
Express your personality.
Cool.
And you would like let it ring, be like, "Oh, that's me."
Yeah.
My first customized ringtone. Sorry, this is already
It's
so off the rails.
Right.
My first customized ringtone that I like cut a track in Fruity Loops was "Walking with a Ghost" by Tegan and Sarah. If that tells you guys where I'm at.
That makes sense.
That gets down to the core
and how I feel about ska.
of Kylan.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense.
Okay, so so we talked about kind of your origin story.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to get into. I don't know. I don't want to. You don't
want to miss a thing.
I don't want to miss a thing. Yeah. Okay. So Aerosmith, guys. Let's get into Aerosmith.
Finally. I can. My knowledge of Aerosmith only goes as deep as Rock and Roller Coaster at Hollywood Studios.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So
that's all you need, honestly.
Gotta be living. It kind of is. It kind of is. Yeah.
Really, yeah. That's the crucial stuff.
Aerosmith is kind of like you just need the cliff notes.
Yeah, fair enough.
Very much so.
Okay, so you have been the manager for Me Without You, American rock band Me Without You, for a long time.
Yeah.
So we kind of had this conversation a little bit with Jonathan Clark on our Penny Black episode or interview with him and Troy Glesner, because they were like so Jonathan was a mixing engineer, Troy's a mastering engineer,
of course,
and so I want to just give the audience maybe just like a quick little rundown of like what a manager does. Like what is your like what for people that are not aware, what do you do for the band? Like what is your involvement?
And spare no gruesome details.
Fair enough.
Really get into the mud and the blood.
Got it.
Here.
Got it. So I think what a manager does is probably different from what I do. My role within the band is any manager's role is just to facilitate opportunity, right? And so
it's so succinct. I love that.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. Like I'm just trying to keep things on the calendar for the band to do, and try to make sure that they are on their way to earning money and then eventually earning more money, and trying to set them up for success. But yeah, basically it's just facilitating opportunity, keeping things on the calendar for them to do, and then also there's a bit of like there's a therapeutic end to it as well, because for me anyway, like I would have to be sort of an armchair psychiatrist. You have to deal with a lot of interpersonal drama. You have, and some people have to deal with egos, stroking them, or just abetting them, or doing whatever it is, or killing them in some cases. But so that's what a manager would generally do. It's like, we get you this sneaker deal and we put you on this commercial, and then the next thing you know, you got a sync and an iTunes ad, and then you got a billion streams a year, and you can do easy touring, and that's like what you can do. But Me Without You is never. I think I heard this on Mason's podcast where he said we developed a cult following, and that is kind of my job. Was what I feel like in retrospect, my job with Me Without You and facilitating opportunity was to sort of foment that relationship between fan and the work specifically, not so much the band, but the work.
Yeah.
So can you perhaps give examples of like practically how you did that? Yeah,
I think the big thing that we did was when I first came on in 2011 as manager. By the way, I've been with the band since 2006 on the road as a merchandiser and a tour manager, and then I eventually took over doing co-management with my friend Josh Bender, and then eventually I became the sole manager. So the way that we fomented, as I use that term, it was when we did the self-release with 10 Stories in 2012, and when it was like made known that this is now like a grassroots thing. There's no label backing this. Like we're pressing these things all by ourselves, and we're going to sell them on our own website or our own web store. And I think that brought us a bit closer to our fan base. And then we packaged the records ourselves up. You know, we designed the whole thing ourselves. We commissioned artwork from Vasily Kafanoff, who did all the previous records before that, and all the records after that as well. I feel like that's one of those things that ingratiated us. Like now this is like, you know, we drove our own bus and we filled it up with grease, and like we pushed our own gear in. We were always a skeleton crew on tour. And so Me Without You had this sort of like DIY punk thing. And so I feel like the self-release of 10 Stories was just that again in this new iteration.
Right.
So, and I feel like we've continued, and we made it like one of the other things too, this is maybe a more broader idea here, but like it's punk and it's DIY, but like it's premium. Like when we do something, it's not like
it's
let's find like a sackcloth and like tie all these things together and like put the LPs, and it's like no, it's like we went out and we spent a lot of money and had a lot of consideration into materials and poured over details, and then learned from our mistakes, and then iterated again, and then iterated, and then iterated, and like now we're like committed to like making good stuff. That was one of the things that like when I first came on to sell merch and I started ordering merch for the band, as part of my responsibility is like we work with this company called Belly Acres out of Chicago, and they do really good work. Like they do excellent work, and they really do excellent work. I don't know how known that was at the time, but it's like we're not just going to go with Joe Schmo. We're going to go with this like smaller print shop that can do really excellent work, and we're going to print on American apparel, right? So buying American was important, and having like a good quality like sweatshop free material was important as well. All those things got kind of blurry later on. I was like, is this sweatshop free, or like what is a sweatshop? Like you know, now it's like a Canadian company owns American Apparel, and it's like
that's funny.
It's a whole thing, you know. But
the
like,
information you had at the time.
Well, but even so, it's still a quality product beyond anything else that was on the market. And there's this idea that like we're gonna make and the designs themselves. We don't do one color designs. We do one color designs because sometimes that looks nice. But at the time, it was like a principle where it's like we do 6 color designs, and they're big and they're elaborate and they're illustrative. And I think it was this idea that like everyone was a bunch of sort of like scrubs on a grease bus that like then had like really nice like merchandise at their table, and who put on this like crazy set. And it just like that sort of like thing was like, you know, we kind of like we wanted the like, despite the fact that like it looked like no one showered, and like you know our bus was like rusted out. It's like guys want their records to sound awesome.
Yeah.
And they want everything around the band to look awesome and feel awesome. So I feel like we wanted to elevate the work despite the fact that there was this sort of like DIY thing happening. Does that make sense? And I feel like in some way that's like people knowing that we still do that today, a year and some months after the band has sort of retired, or not broken up, said farewell, or whatever you want to call it. That we still continue those traditions today, and we still run our own merch store, which is a big part of my responsibility. And so, yeah, I feel like that sort of like I answer every customer email that comes in, and I ship out. Occasionally, I get help to come in and help me out when I have a large amount of stuff. But like 90% of the orders that go out, they all go through my hands, right? There's like this thing too, where now I am a part of this more customer or fan facing affair within the band. Whereas like when you say, hey, can I change the address to my order, or can I update my order? What's going on in my order? Like you get an email back from like the manager of the band.
Yeah.
Within like 24 hours, or sometimes if I'm sitting at my computer, a couple minutes. And I feel like that is important.
For sure. And I think that it definitely speaks to like the connection that Me Without You as an entity has with fans. Like everyone I've met that is a Me Without You fan is like, it's similar to like almost kind of the way the circles that I run in, like specifically like horror fans or like boutique like film distribution chain, like Vinegar Syndrome or what Criterion used to be, like the people that are like really into those things. Because there's like a sense of community. There's like there's a real personal attachment. And I think, I think a big part of that comes from that high quality and personal touch. You know, those are really important factors. And I feel like, you know, it's surprising, honestly, how few bands have kind of cracked that in the way that Me Without You has.
It's all Aaron. It's all Aaron Weiss. Yeah, he is, because he is such a enigma to people, because he is this like sort of like big, like vociferous, like lead singer, lead shouter, whatever you want to call him. He's just flailing on stage, but then he is at the same time this like sort of like shy and meek person who like kind of like, you know, wants to be out of the spotlight.
Right.
At the same time, I think it's that sort of dynamic where it's like, oh, he's so monastic. Well, if he's so monastic, then why is he flailing around on stage? Like, you know,
he's creating this dichotomy that confuses people, but also endears them to him.
Totally. I think another thing too, and this isn't me, I'm not claiming any of this. This is mostly, I think, you know, just the culture of the band was that like we would do potlucks, right? So like the barrier between someone who comes to the show and the band isn't just like, hey, we're hanging out by the merch table, come say hi.
Right.
It's like,
here's
no,
a meet and greet. Like,
here's a meet and greet that you pay for, right? Which I tried to convince the band to do a couple times because and for reasons I'll explain in a second. But like there is this sort of like this barrier breaking down when the band is accessible and personable and wants to know the people that are coming to the show and wants to talk to them. The thing is that became, it was very hard for Aaron because everyone wants to talk to Aaron. Everyone wants to ask him a question, and they all want like the Sermon on the Mount. That's what we all called it.
Right.
Where he'd be out there after a show or before a show talking to like 50 kids, just kind of like, and Aaron's not a prophet. He's a very, very intelligent person. And he's a very charismatic person, what he wants to be. And again, people are attracted to this enigma. But that would wear him down. Like he would lose his voice. He'd just get emotionally worn out. People would come up with problems and this and that. And eventually it was like, probably around 2009, 2010, he had to sort of recede. And that was just, you know, not sustainable.
Yeah.
And this was my reason for the meet and greet. I was like, listen, we're about to do a farewell tour. Like, your fans want to say hi. This is a controlled environment to like meet them.
And he can still protect his energy.
Bingo. Because we're not letting a million people in.
Yes.
And, you know, we do. And of course, there's another barrier where it's like, you have to pay money to get in. That's not because like, of course we want money, but like the money is also, it's a ticket. Like we're not doing a lottery here. We could do a lottery. Maybe that would have been swallowed easier by the band. Certainly would have been worth my time to set up. But, you know, that could have been one we could have done it. Something like that. I don't even know how you would even set that up. But that was like, the VIP things were like, absolutely not. No way. And I was just like, these guys are such a bunch of, I mean, it's a total millennial thing to like do the VIP thing. Gen X bands like Me Without You are just like, what the heck? No way. I'm not doing this. No. Well, how it's just so corny. It's like, it's not corny. This is what people want, you know?
Right.
Fugazi thought they were selling t-shirts from corny. So like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
hey man, you got to wear a shirt most days, at least.
Most days.
So you might as well sell one.
Not if you're my kids. They just want to be naked all the time.
They just
sure. And there, you know, there's a certain extent that's all right, and then you get old enough, you enter society, and you got to start.
You wear your Fugazi shirt. Yep,
there you go.
You wear your Fugazi shirt.
What I'm hearing though, Mike, is like that. There's this balance between that accessibility of the artist and also protecting their energy, and you're almost like this facilitator of that access or that interaction that obviously was the factor that did differentiate Me Without You as a band to its fans and help them have some sense of ownership and some sense of connection, which helped hopefully the band succeed ultimately. I definitely felt that, coming up, listening to each album as it dropped, going to live shows, I felt a level of connection that I didn't with a lot of bands. So it was effective, I can say, from the perspective of just one single fan.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, was that a lot of work for you to facilitate, or I don't know. It's interesting to hear you talk about it because it feels like it's a natural disposition of yours, or just something that kind of comes very organically. It doesn't seem like I would be I would be struggling with this kind of work if it were if they were like, "Hey, TJ, we want you to manage this." I'd be like, "How? What?"
Yeah.
Your skill set seems really matched to the job.
Yeah. Well, it's matched to Me Without You, because that's the culture that I came up with on the road. Like when the first band I ever toured was Me Without You. Like I graduated college in 2006, and I had become friends with some of those guys. They were my favorite band at the time. Like I loved Me Without You.
Nice.
And Greg and I had become close, and then he lived with Mike, and so Mike and I became close, and then I went on tour, right? And I got kind of taught how to do things, right, in the band. Like their tour manager and their manager, Josh Bender, taught me the ropes on the road. The guys taught me sort of, I kind of learned what the culture was and how we did things. And then it was my job eventually to sort of like push that a little bit more, because I don't really remember what it was. Probably 2000 when we first got on tour with Me Without You. Like we were doing like $5 per diems, $35 a week.
Wow.
For per diem, just because, and we did that for like, we must have done that till 2011, and then we got like road crew. We got like someone to sell merchandise, and I was like, hey, we should be doing like $20 a day, like bare minimum for here for like per diem. Like people need to eat breakfast. Like dinner buyout is wonderful, but like sometimes it's $15. Like a per diem, like it's your money too. Like you now get to have $140 a week just for the heck of it. Like, it's not this isn't taxable. Like, so like, that was like one of those things where like I had to kind of like maybe like push like, hey, we can do a little better here. We can change. But then like, it's suited in a way only because like I was brought up in it. Like I was, I don't know how suited I would. I'm also very gracious to the band because I mentioned egos earlier. Not a lot of egos. Everyone gets an ego. Gift. Everyone gets an ego, and like believe me, I have an ego at times. Like there's been some knockdown, drag out stuff. There's been a lot of heels dug in, but I'd never get the phone call at like 3 a.m. being like, I need someone to get me Wendy's. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like some ridiculous thing, like find me an Apple store that's open.
It's in my rider.
Yeah.
I've never got print.
Like the most like, I don't even have a thing where it'd be like, can you get me a Red Bull 30 minutes before the set? That would be like the big request that I'd have to like.
That's the big.
I gotta go find a Red Bull. Like it was never like.
About 20,000 of them.
Guys were always very self-sufficient. They took care of themselves. I was definitely leaned on plenty because that's my job as a tour manager on the road.
Yeah.
And I should also mention that I started as the merch guy in 2006. And then I became a tour manager in 2010. And then I became the co-manager in 2011. And then in 2012, by the end of 2012, I was the manager. And in that time, I didn't give up any of those roles. I gave up like merch. I gave up merch.
Absorbed them.
I gave up merch for like a couple years. And then I eventually took it back. And I just did it the whole way. And then also, I should also mention when we did the self-release, we were like, then I took on the online store, right? So I'm a distro on top. I'm a record label on top of it. So that's I just bonkers, Me Without You became like my small business,
right?
Like I had a writer's room, right? And that was the guys who play on stage and everyone knows. Then my job was to sort of like take their output and give it context. And so, yeah, and then try and figure out how to finance it, how to get everyone paid, how to make everyone happy, get who are we going to go on tour with, do all that sort of stuff. So it really, like, I am technically, if we're talking about LLCs and S corps, like I'm like I am legally 1/6 of Me Without You. Like I'm not just a manager. Like I literally, it is my band, like it's my company with these 5 other guys that are currently in it.
So you're still, once you become like full manager, you're still like going out on the road with them for like all their tours and everything?
It's the only thing I ever wanted to do was be with this band eventually. I didn't want to tour. I didn't want to manage other bands per se. I did manage Five Iron Frenzy for probably about a year.
Yep.
But that was it, really. I didn't really do anything other than that. And I didn't really want to. And I did go on tour with other bands. I toured with Mates of State. I toured with Brand New.
Nice. I
toured with Manchester Orchestra and Bad Books. And so I had a career in touring, but I would turn down any of those gigs if Me Without You had anything going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just, that was home base for me. That's like my crew.
Yeah. That's your passion.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So, Josh, you're pretty Killers agnostic, right?
Well, I wasn't going to say it on mic, but I kind of am.
I know, but I'm forcing you
I like some
to.
of their stuff, you know? I'm not fully into Killers, but I like a little bit here and there.
You know, I'll accept that, but only because it's a better position than Kylan revealed his position to be on this episode, which is that Brandon Flowers got bored and
he did.
What did you say?
He did.
He like lost
bored.
his hunger.
He did.
After
I will
Hot
stand
Fuss.
by that. Yes.
But regardless, whether you think, Imploding the Mirage is a masterwork or Battleborn might arguably be the Killers' best album, or if you think Hot Fuss is when they peaked, regardless, it doesn't matter. Because you can get Imploding the Mirage on vinyl at Collide Records right now. You can also get Hot Fuss, 180 gram, y'all, on Collide Records right now. Unfortunately, you can only get the CD of Battleborn, but I had that CD. I don't know where it went. Josh probably stole it from me, but I had it at one point, and it sounded great. So, it's a UK pressing on Collide Records. I don't know what that means, but I feel like it's going to sound awesome. The point is, a lot of their discography is available. And not only that, but if you throw in the promo code Church Jams now on your first order from Collide Records, you'll get 20% off on any of that. You could bundle it. You could just decide, you know what? I'm going all in on the Killers, right? And prove Kylan wrong, that the whole discography is awesome. You could also prove Josh wrong, that being Killers agnostic is just a bad choice.
Not a way to be. Yeah. You know what? You know what, Josh?
No one
you
likes
have
a
the
fence
worst
sitter.
opinion.
Yeah, I'm just
of all of us.
I don't care either way.
You know what, Kylan? And never mind. I changed my mind. You're right.
Right. Josh
is the real
ultimately
villain
has
here.
the worst opinion on the Killers
I don't
of
think
all of
anything's
us.
bad.
There's no opinion.
Somehow that's worse.
I like more of their songs than I dislike them.
Nope.
Okay.
That's just wrong. Wrong. Okay, so to prove Josh wrong, go to colliderecords.com.
You know what would really prove me wrong is this Pressure Machine deluxe vinyl box set that they have.
Pressure Machine is pretty great.
I didn't mention that.
Oh, you mean
Yeah,
Nebraska
it is pretty
2.0?
Yep.
Okay.
That is what we mean.
Yep.
So see, you should like them.
I mean,
As a boss fan, like,
yeah,
you should really just
doing
make the
whole
leap.
time. But anyways, I want to say that vinyl, that box set, it's a pretty hefty box set. But you put in Church Jams now, 20% off of that sucker. That's like, it's $83 right now. 20% off that, you're looking in the 60s. That's easy money for if you're a massive Killers fan that needs Pressure Machine deluxe vinyl box set.
Or
it's pretty sweet.
An anti-Josh fan who wants to prove that Josh has the worst opinion on this podcast regarding the Killers. $60. Totally worth it.
Totally worth it.
colliderecords.com. Use promo code ChurchJams now for 20% off that purchase. Let's get back to the show. So you said that like you graduated college, they were your favorite band. You went on tour. So can you recount to us your first experience seeing Me Without You and being like, oh, I just want to hang out with these guys?
Is it. Yeah.
Oh,
right.
I want
I
to
wanna
hang
hear
out with
that.
these guys. Oh, well, no. I mean, the first time I saw Me Without You was on the Radio Takeover tour, December 18th at the TLA, which was P-Shock's last show, and was also the day that
Mm.
Mike and his wife Sarah were engaged. So
Wow.
that was in Philadelphia.
Big
That was
day.
in Philadelphia. Yeah, it was a big day. P-Shock's last show as a member, like a full time.
Member.
He still came back and like a couple things. We flew him into Cornerstone one time. We
Nice.
did our Southeast Asian tour with P-Shock because Greg couldn't make it. Like P-Shock came on tour with Brand New in 2007 in Europe. Like he was always just like,
Around.
oh, Greg can't do it. You like call Dan. Let's get Dan on the
Get me.
phone and fly Dan
Let's
in
go.
here. It's like, does Dan even know how much of the catalog does Dan know? You know, but he was such a trooper, man. God.
Nice.
Anyway, and that's when I saw the band for the first time. But again, referencing the Mason's episode too, talking about Pure Volume.
Mm-hmm.
That's like where I probably first heard January 1979 and Paper Hanger.
Oh, wow.
Those are the two singles
Okay.
that came out, and I just was like, "Whoa, what's this?"
Mhm.
and then I went back and I listened to A to B Life, and I
Cool.
listened to A to B Life a little bit. But like my roommate Kimon in college, an old friend of mine I went to high school with, he illegally downloaded Catch Roast the Foxes. I don't
Nice.
know what, right? And so he downloaded. He's like, "Yo, I got the new Me Without You album." I was like, "All right, cool." And we sat in front of his computer and like listened to it, you know.
Right.
And I just was like, I remember when Forward Letter came on, and they do the Cry of Exodus that Scotty Kruger does. I came on like looking up, who is that? Aaron? My God, I didn't know we could sing. Of course, it's not Aaron at all, but like it was just.
Right.
My point is to illustrate that we were like not just like passively
Enraptured.
listening to it.
Yeah.
We were like engrossed in listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that record became like my favorite record, like by far at that point. And where it would be just an earworm in my head. I'd be thinking of lyrics that are being said or singing, like someone would say something and then I would launch into like a Me Without You lyric that corresponded to it.
I love it.
And I would just find that happening all the time. That extended into my first tour of Me Without You, where someone would say something and then I would respond with a Me Without You. It just was
To them.
it was bad.
It's like, just try so hard to not be a nerd. Just like,
Yeah,
just
really,
don't be
really.
a nerd.
I can't do that.
Those script and crooked lines.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that where I would just
You
someone would
can't
circles, points, and lines. And we cover them like carpets. And I would just go. But yeah, that was part of like the obsession that happened there. But my relationship with them started when I went to this coffee shop every day.
This is in Philadelphia?
In Philly, sorry.
Okay.
And this is a coffee shop in the Italian market called The Gleaners, which is if anyone ever goes to the Italian market, it's an awesome cafe with a incredible mozzarella, tomato, and artichoke sandwich called The Gleaner. It is such a good breakfast sandwich.
I'm going.
Shout out to The Gleaners. It's so good.
It's going to happen.
You're the most Philly guy I've ever met.
I know.
Like that.
I love it. I love this.
I went back like a couple months ago and I brought my youngest son and I bought that sandwich and I was like, oh, it's just as good as
still the best.
So yeah, still the best. So I would go there and there would be this girl. She was there as well. Her name was Eleanor. I started hanging out with her, and then all of a sudden, this other guy started hanging out with us too, and it was Greg from Me Without You, and I just was like, "Oh, it's the guy from like my favorite band is here," and I think we both have a crush on this same girl, and so we were always in each other's orbit.
Yeah, that's like got to be really
Gleaners.
conflicting for you because you love what he does, but he's like horning in on your territory.
No, it's not. It wasn't like it was.
I'm kidding.
No, I was just I'm not a wolf in that sense.
No.
But then Greg and I became close. Like,
nice.
And we
this is an indie film right now. Like,
yeah. Greg and I bonded over. We bonded over Star Wars, and we would hang out, go over his house, hang out, whatever, just talk about Star Wars, hang out with Eleanor. And then and eventually like we were at the Qdoba on Walnut Street in Center City. And he's eating fish tacos because Greg I've never seen Greg touch red meat he just eats fish.
Oh.
So he got a fish tacos probably, and then I was just like, hey, I got something to tell you. He's like, what is it? I was like, I love Me Without You. He was like, oh, cool. And like that was it. And it's just like,
Wow.
all right. I mean, it wasn't a thing. I wasn't trying to be like, I know who you are, but I'm like, this is anyway. I wasn't trying to like be that guy.
Yeah, it wasn't a flex.
I want
or
my
anything.
relationships to be natural. Of course, I want to know people who are interesting to me.
Sure.
But then through Greg, I got to know kind of everyone else as a result.
Nice.
And that's how I kind of became integrated into that whole thing, where I would find myself over at Greg's house with Mike, and they'd be listening to demos for Brother Sister, right?
Nice.
And then I would
cool.
get this like, so I'm this massive fan, and I'd be like listening to the next record, the new Me Without You record, like on these like tiny like desktop speakers.
That is hilarious.
No vocals on them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because Me Without You songwriting
that
process.
Was their writing structure. Yeah.
It's very punk rock. It's very hardcore. This is like you just write the riffs and you just write out the song structure, and then you give it to your lyricist, and he just kind of like barks and shouts stuff over it. That's part of Me Without You's post-hardcoreness is ingrained in that writing process all the way up to 2018. Right.
Well, and not to like take us down a tangential road, but I do have a question actually that pertains to that.
Go for
it. If you don't mind, and feel free to plead the fifth or
all right.
whatever you need to do. But I'm
intrigued.
I don't know where this is going.
Where could this possibly be?
I was definitely huge into Me Without You by the time that It's All Crazy came out. And was really intrigued by how different that record was sounding.
What's different about it?
Nothing at all. I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But I did also deep dive. I heard you chatting with Matthew of Plot of Never.
But yeah.
And on that episode, you were he was asking you to speak a bit about the ebbing and flowing of like the popular culture and how Me Without You related to that, and how for a minute their sound really fit into the center of the zeitgeist of like the raw, emotive emo scene, and then they kind of maybe fell out because things went toward that twee folk pop direction, and then the banjos and the bells and all that, and you mentioned how it felt like it was maybe them trying to like chase a sound that the moment had already passed for.
Yes.
But I remember, I wish I could like cite my source, because I feel very like woo right now, just being like, I heard a thing one time and I think it's true. Yeah. But I was a big kind of nerd and would read a lot of these interviews and things. And I feel like there was a fairly reputable source that I found that was explaining how the writing process for that album was more Aaron actually writing songs like on acoustic, or like a more sparse song structure, and then bringing it to the band, as opposed to their primary style, which you alluded to earlier, which was vice versa, where the band would write some riffs, some structure, and then he would come and lay a top line over it.
Totally.
I just want to hear from you about that, and whether there's if that holds water at all. Did he like approach did they approach the album writing process differently on that one?
No, they did not approach it differently. It did end up becoming different.
Okay.
So when the guys first got together to write It's All Crazy, it was the traditional style. Like, let's do they were now a 4-piece, by the way, because Chris Kleinberg had left the band, no longer a part of the band. So now they're a 4-piece writing, which means that they were technically a 3-piece writing, because Aaron is not really that involved in a lot of that stuff.
Gotcha.
Until the end, just because he doesn't write the guitar lines, he doesn't play drums, he's not playing bass. His contribution is mostly vocals, and of course he does acoustic stuff, and he does play piano, and he is a drummer himself. So
But
he
he's
can
more
do
of
all
like
those
a
things.
player with instruments and less of a writer
Bingo.
instrumentally.
That's exactly
Got it.
that's
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So
That clears it up.
yeah, there were probably about 8 or 9 songs that got written that were the traditional style of that. And
Cool.
then and there were some bangers on there too, man. Ones
Yeah.
that never saw light of day. There was one song that was
Really?
like dark and cool called Terminator 4.
What?
Nice.
And there was another one called Lexus commercial. And they had just like cool riffs and like rolling bass lines and like just
Oh,
classic, like
man.
aggressive Me Without You.
Ah,
And none of that stuff was like really working. There was also
right.
there's songs called like Ships and Bottles and Salt and Stick and like all these different like demo names. These mean nothing. I'm just giving you
Sure.
kind of interesting
Yeah, yeah,
tidbits
yeah.
about the
No, I
songwriting
love it.
process. But it sounded like a Me Without You record, although not a very
Mm.
good one, to be quite honest.
Hmm.
And certainly not enough material there to build a record off of.
Mm.
And so like songs like Lexus commercial, which really was more of an idea than an actual song. It was a riff, a part that could have been something cool. Terminator 4 put by the wayside, came back in some other like subtler ways in other songs.
Okay.
All these songs, Ships and Bottles is just kind of a dirge. It was too slow, whatever. And so you had songs like, Salt and Stick ended up being Fig with a Bellyache. There's a song called
Okay.
Swan that ended up being Timothy Hay, a song called Island Jam that ended up being Goodbye I. Every Thought I Thought of You was called Utah Jazz. So you have like Utah. so you have so you've got on that record. And maybe I should just pull it up. There's a lot of songs that are they're all written by the 4-piece, the 3-piece, as it were.
Right.
Let me pull this up real quick. I gotta get the killers.
Mike, Greg, and Ricky, right?
Yeah, pretty
that's
much.
The 3
Yeah,
piece,
and
essentially.
yeah, exactly. So Every Thought has Aaron on it doing the keys, right? So Every Thought was a full band song. Box of Crow and the Cookie is a full band song. Goodbye I, full band song. A Stick of Carrot and String, full band. Bullet to Binary 2, full band. Timothy Hay, full band. Fig the Bill. So like really the only ones that are like Aaron in this thing are Angel of Death and Cattail Down, King Beetle, and Allah. And everything else. So it's like you've got like a smattering of Aaron stuff. So like it does get said a lot where it's like Aaron brought these songs. That's like, no, Aaron filled out the stuff that wasn't working with his own material, and then all the accoutrement that was put on those songs proliferated into the other songs. So it's like,
cool.
That's why there's like, what's one of the instruments on Fox the Crow and the Cookie that's like, it's like a toy piano.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Why is that?
Going to mention that exact
a tuba. Like these things just got added to like to make
create
this thing
chamber folk record.
Exactly, and to make it be distinct. That was the other thing. A lot of those things had sort of occurred in smaller ways on Brother Sister, and this was the sort of like natural progression of like finding what was different about that album and moving forward and trying to implement more of that
into
stuff.
The next iteration.
But I feel like the acoustic stuff that Aaron brought pushed that just to the nth degree, and so I think that's why It's All Crazy sounds just so distinct. Yeah, so I mean, it is true. Aaron brought more songs on that record, I think, than any other of the albums.
Cool.
So yeah, and also having Daniel Smith's influence. I mean, that's it. They picked the producer,
right,
for all that stuff. Like it's just like we want this to be like a Seven Swans.
Yeah, yes,
kind of record,
that's
right?
exactly the feeling I had kind of coming away from it. Was like this is like a weird like Sufjan album.
Yeah.
And like it makes so much sense that you bring up Daniel as like an influential point of kind of creative energy. I don't know how much that weighed in, but like I don't know, it all kind of makes sense when you bring it up.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, did Aaron bring things to the table in other records that and obviously this is just your perspective. We're not gonna
That's fine.
We're not gonna be like Mike's representing the entire Me Without You perspective. were there songs that Aaron brought to the table that you were like, this really completes an album, or that maybe fought with the feeling on the record? Because I bring that up because It's All Crazy to me feels like the one record where he could do that, and where it made sense for him to do that, and where there was space for him to do that, just because of where y'all were at as a band and where things were going. But I'm curious about the other records. Like, was there kind of any push and pull with that at all?
No,
Comes to mind?
I think that, I think we tried to make space for it again in other records.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think here when it kind of started. I mean, so Pale Horses was, what's the song on there that Aaron brought? I'm trying to think. Did he bring something on that record? It's not on the record. It's on the EP. So the Appendix EP after it has a lot of stuff that Aaron was more involved with. So I'm looking at this right now. And it's mostly a lot of the Sacred Harp stuff, Hebrew Children, Fairfield, which then were just vocal performances, right? Chapel, I think, I could be wrong. Maybe Chapel Cross Towns, Aaron. I don't even know if he did. I don't know. It wasn't really there. I think he tried to integrate more his interest in Sacred Harp into Pale Horses and wanted it to be more a part of the record itself.
Right.
And it got relegated to the EP afterwards, where it's definitely way more appropriate. But it is sort of gothic and dark, and like it is very beautiful in a lot of ways, and it's very esoteric. Like, it's not like something that's like a cool thing per se.
For sure. I could see how that would be a weird departure, though. Like, somewhere along the way in Pale Horses, like it just probably wouldn't work.
I'm trying to think. I think it was It's All Crazy, where he was saying, I don't know what to write, and I don't know what to write. But I don't know how to write lyrics, but I have so much to say. He was going to do the entire album. This is insane. In Latvian. He was going to learn Latvian.
No way.
Because he thought the language was beautiful, and because it meant that he would have to do less work as a lyricist to make things sound beautiful. So he had just like tomes written in a notebook. Like, Aaron is not a writer, by the way. Like, Aaron can write and write very well, but he's not like Bukowski, where like he just he's just gotta write. It just flows out of him.
Like, it's like earned. He works for it. Yeah.
He describes it as birth. Like, every time he like, it's traumatic for him in some ways. But when it comes out of it, it's like a beautiful new thing.
Yes.
Much like childbirth, where it's like it's traumatic for the woman, and then the woman forgets about it, and it's beautiful, and like, let's have another.
Thus is the record cycle.
Yes, except the impending fear would always come with every record. It wouldn't quite go away. The hormones didn't work the same with the record as it does with a child. But we tried to make space for it. There, the Sacred Harp stuff found its way in there, and then when we went to go do Untitled, which didn't have a name at the time, it was supposed to be a double album. And Aaron was off in Idaho writing like these weird, like lo-fi, like interstitial songs, like a minute long, 50 seconds long, where he would just like, they wouldn't even be songs. They're just like ideas. That's why I call them like interstitial tracks.
Right.
You're familiar with the band Olivia Tremor Control? They're like an Elephant Six sort of band. They kind of are adjacent to Neutral Milk Hotel. Very kind of weird experimental tape manipulations and like pop songs, and like they would make these like big, like, sprawling double records where it's just like cool pop song, very beautiful songs here, and it's like, that's cool. And then it's like 2 minutes of like tape manipulation and like weird, just experimental stuff to kind of like fuzz it up in between. And I feel like he had this idea that we were going to do something like this. We were going to contrast the lo-fi with the hi-fi, and the dynamic was going to be something he was going to play with.
Interesting.
So yeah, he recorded, I don't know how many songs he recorded, tracks he recorded. I probably have like 6 of them on my computer, maybe 8 on my computer, and it's all just kind of like, they're not songs, but they never. We were always ready for them to like be brought, be like, here's this idea, and then we would kind of like flush it out together a little bit, and then we'd see where it fit in the record. I think that he felt that maybe, I don't want to speak for Aaron, but my sense is that he maybe was embarrassed or didn't feel like the guys were very engaged with it, or he thought that because we weren't engaging with it as much as he had thought, that we were not, that the band was not interested in it.
Yeah, right.
But the thing is, with Aaron in the writing process, it's like everybody hands off. Like nobody talked to Aaron about it. Like just nobody talked to. Don't You can't go into the studio when Aaron's there. He's very self-conscious about what he's doing. He has to have a lot of trust. Like with Daniel or with Will on the last 2 records in the EP, he needs to feel very safe and comfortable and somebody he can work with and try a lot of things out and know that he needs to have trust in that room. And so I get the sense that he was like, no one's into this idea. And like, we're just moving past. Like, guys want to write a rock record. Let's just write a rock record. Like we always know. And so not a lot of that, none of that stuff. Christy with the sparkling teeth. Christy was, no, that's a Dom song. Dom wrote that song. Bird Runner, Existential Dread. Is that? I don't know. I don't know what Aaron brought. If he brought anything in there, it's kind of a shame. Actually.
Yeah,
so right. we tried to make space for it, but it didn't really happen.
Right. And sometimes that's how it goes.
He contributes a lot though. Let's be honest.
For sure.
Like,
sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying he's not contributing, or of course I'm not saying that, but I'm just like, he's 50% of the band easily.
Right.
He's one guy.
Yeah.
He's carrying such a heavy load on every
huge.
record.
Yeah. I would love to go back. You know, I know I keep using this term, but then I'm just so fascinated. Like as an insecure creative myself, like I'm so fascinated by how you facilitate that practically. Like as the band sort of like moved on, and you said, you know, like he needs a lot of trust in the studio and only certain people can be there. So are you specifically looking for people that you have worked with successfully in the past, and then sort of like barring certain people from the studio? And like I don't want like names or anything, you know what I mean? Like I'm very curious as to how you help
the approach,
create that atmosphere.
Yeah.
I don't do any. I don't do any.
Okay.
They're all big boys. They all like. It's just kind of understood that like Aaron probably doesn't want people here.
Yeah.
And he's not going to share his lyrics beforehand. He's not going to share a lot of vocal takes or ideas. He became more open at the end. I mean, he probably did 10 stories. He shared EastEnders Wives vocals early. On later records, he probably did, you know, a couple things. He probably did. He shared with me Watermelon Ascot at some point. Like things get like sprinkled in there,
right?
But I'm not doing anything. In fact, there's no. It's just kind of understood. This is like part of the culture. It's like
sweet.
And even when this is how far it extends, and it's kind of funny because it's one of the best days ever from working this band is like when you get a rough mix with Aaron on a track, because now you know what the track is going to be, right? Because you listen to the demos for like 6 months at this point.
Right.
guys have gone in, they've done pre-pros, they've done the rough mix, everything sounds really cool, but like you don't know what it's going to sound like. A classic example is, I can't really speak to it, but people would tell you Tie Me Up Untie Me was a very different song before Aaron came onto it and then changed it. And the one that more recently is, I'm going to mess the name up because I'm going to call it by the demo, but Burnham Wood. Okay. I looked at my list. It was originally called Spacely Sprockets, by the way. So when Spacely Sprockets was the song, it was like, whoa, this is a killer Me Without You song. This is classic. Can't wait to hear what Aaron's going to do on this track. My God, like this is the single. And he comes back and he's just like, dark effects. It's just like, it's not the song that anyone had hoped. He's like singing over it. It's very mid-tempo now. Like he pulled a lot of guitars out of it.
Like changes the structure of the song or the sonic like rise and fall.
He needs to it sometimes because like I think there on the choruses, like there was a guitar part. He needed it. He couldn't have it in there because he'd be competing with it. So we took the guitar part out. You would extend certain parts, truncate other parts just to kind of make the song work. That's when you had to fill too much space. You just had to do what he needed to do for the song. So yeah, there was some of that stuff that would happen in post. Yeah, so you would get the song and be like, holy cow, Like, this is what Mexican War. This song is called Mexican War Streets now. Oh, great. Oh, it's awesome,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And like you just be stoked on all that stuff. But then there'd be instances like, but here's the thing. What I was trying to say about that is that when the track comes in, like I know, speaking for myself, I'm pumped. Like
Right.
I can't wait to hear the track, and I listen to the track like nonstop. But no one says anything to Aaron. Like someone says, like, sounds good, eh? Like, that's it. Because no one wants to like give him any
pressure.
Positive or negative feedback or pressure. Right?
Sure.
And so and then no one asks him questions about his lyrics.
That's okay.
In the band. Like no one has.
This was my big question.
I don't know what a single
does
Me
even
Without You
Mike
song is about.
know? Like, does anybody ever know?
Nobody knows. No one knows.
Oh my God.
No one. And by the end of Me Without You's like catalog, like some stuff is like it's pretty dense. Like you have to be extremely well read, and you have to.
You'd almost have to be like a professor at a university in Idaho.
Someone did. Some fan did like the annotated 10 stories, and I was like, "Oh, this is so helpful." Like they did, like they went through everything, and like, "Oh, that's what an ash cat is," and like that's what this is the reference. Oh, I didn't know that. Like,
I did a deep dive on Pale Horses, and it was like, forgive my French, but it was a mind fuck, man. Like,
dude, Untitled's even crazier. Untitled's crazier.
Yeah,
Untitled is like characters speaking to characters, and like they're not even in the lyrics, and it's like they're like wrestlers.
How would you know this?
Like WWF wrestlers, and like I don't know what's going on here. So yeah, and I'm not a big lyrics guy personally. I'm more of like I'm there for like vibes more so.
Yeah. Well, okay, this totally speaks to. I was talking about this on our Catch for Us the Foxes episode of like Me Without You is like they perfectly toe the line of like a cerebral band and just like vibe guys.
Yeah,
you know what? Like
totally.
it's so
the best
perfect.
of both worlds.
Which is, I think, why we love them as a podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. There is such a, because Aaron again is very smart and is and likes to challenge himself in terms of his writing and digs very deep for what he's going to write about. And then at the same time, it's like Rick is like he loves the Dead, right? And so there's like this kind of like there's like this jam band sort of quality to it. So there's like this weird technicality, and then there's some of that like free flowingness that happens on top of it. So it's very loose and it's very tight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dynamics are very important, and dichotomy is very important in creating, I think, good work and something that really is captivating to people. I think that's where Me Without You, their strength is in their contrast.
Yes. Yeah. The versatility.
Yeah.
In one song.
Yeah.
And
bingo.
In a record.
Totally.
And in their whole discography.
Yeah. Bingo.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. As micro and macro as you want to make it, they've got it.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to think about like being in a band where you have like because the band, like when they hear a song for most instances, it sounds like the lyrics, like that's just how it is. Like you can't give like, oh, Aaron, what if you like tried this instead? Like it is what it is based on what Aaron like, which is such a crazy dynamic to think of because most bands you're like, oh, I think you should do this.
A little
or
more
what if
democratic.
you said it this way?
Yeah.
But I mean, they're so different, and like obviously so much is like the vocals and Aaron's writing are such an important part of it. So I don't know, maybe it works better that way of just letting Aaron do his thing and the band just like trusts him.
I feel like later I know that when Pale Horses came out, there was a lyric note, and it was in Rainbow Signs.
Oh, really?
I think that's my favorite. The line is
on the album.
Yeah, it's a great song, and the line is now Beast of the Battersea Shield at the opening of the force field or whatever it is, right? And originally the line was Nick Fury, Agents of Shield at the opening of the force field, and it's in the lyric book still. It's in the lyric book.
No way.
And it's scratched out.
I gotta go find my vinyl.
Yeah, it's scratched out in the lyric book where it says Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He still screams he still screams Nick Fury. If you listen to that part, Beast of the Battersea Shield at the opening of the force field. I think that's what it is. And it doesn't sound right. But he screams, Nick Fury, Nick Fury, Nick Fury, Nick Fury there. So that was his like little callback. Because we're just like, Aaron, the Avengers movies? Like, this is pretty on the nose.
They're like pop culture right now.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's gonna get this.
Yeah, everyone's like, this is not like the obscure comic book you think it is.
That you think it is, yes.
Yeah.
Someone had to tell him because he didn't know.
At the time. And now he's like, he's watched more Marvel movies than I do. He loves those Marvel movies.
That's so funny.
But yeah, that was like
it.
the one. That was like one time there was like a note being like, "This is kind of a corny line,"
and probably the right one. If there was one note to be given, right?
Yeah.
And an album coming out in that like sort
it's
of
true.
Pop culture atmosphere, I think that was the one.
Yeah, clip that. Don't.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So funny.
But I love that he's still stuck. Like he
still
found
gonna
his
scream
little
it.
Yeah, exactly.
way
So
to get it in.
Pay homage to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so great.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I want to kind of backtrack a little bit to like you running the web store and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just think it's really cool how the band has been. It's been almost a year and a half now since the farewell tour, and like you're still able to make this like your job. Like you're still sending records out. You're still like this is what you're doing. You're shipping stuff out to a band that isn't around anymore, but you're able to make that a sustainable business model. Like.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, sure. I kind of always sensed that like this was how Me Without You would go for a while, is that we would, because we had built up our catalog of records that kind of like, we owned all the masters to, we knew that we could kind of like have our own distro, and that would just be like another arm of like our business, essentially, our band, as a way to, and originally when we did that too, when we did the 10 stories thing, it was like, how can we offset touring? Because one of the challenges, one of the reasons that Me That You eventually, had to kind of like fold was that the band would sell 300 tickets in most markets and would sell 700 tickets in bigger markets. And, it would do like 1,500 tickets at home in Philly. But like, that's all well and good. And you can make a lot of money playing shows in those kinds of rooms all across the country pretty consistently.
Right.
The thing is that you can make a lot of money doing it. You just have to, you make enough money to support your families, or 6 families in this case. Right. You have to do a lot. Right. So if Me That You had ascended to like the next tier, where it's like, now we're doing 1,000 cap rooms, right? We're playing to 1,000 people every night. Like that is a wildly different economy for 6 people to support their families with. Right. Where now it's like, now we can go out once a year, once every other year. You can put out a record every 5 years, as much as you want. But Me That You was like, we've got to go on at least 2 tours a year. We've got to have a record like every 2 to 3 years. Like we were just like set in this like pattern, and it's just a lot of work. And it's, for the writing process, like I mentioned with Aaron, like it's daunting. Like that's in some ways like not it just being at this like, it being this sort of like rapacious thing, like it just grinds you down. Like it's very much as a young person's game to be in rock and roll and like go out on the road and be away. You don't have a family. You don't really have, your standard of living is much lower. Eventually when you get older, you have a family and your standards go up. It's like, it becomes more and more difficult. Your body is aching more literally as you play a show, or you're not getting enough rest, or you're just working hard, or whatever the heck it is. And mentally it becomes harder as you go on. So like one of the things we wanted to do with the online store is a way to, like I said, offset that thing. So it's like, here is extra revenue. So now you don't have to go on 3 tours a year. Maybe you can go on 1 big tour, a small tour, and like we can manage our finances through the online store, selling. You don't have to sell merch just when you're on tour. You can sell it every day if you want to, right? And that will accumulate, and that will help just ease the pain of having to go out as much. And it could even benefit you in a way where it's like, now you're actually bringing in more money. Even if you did the same amount of touring in a year, like you're adding on to the pile. You're making this thing more sustainable for you, your wife, and your kids. And each other ultimately, because money can be such a burden. And I'm sorry if I talk so much about money in this thing, but that is, I have to be oriented as the band's
that's
so I'm
your
also
role.
their part of my role. Yeah.
Right. And what I hear is that you're fomenting opportunity, to use your language.
Thank you.
from earlier.
Fomenting opportunity. Wow.
You know,
Very corporate
like-
speak.
But it's true. I mean, and to also note something else that I remember you mentioning in the
Pot of
episode
never.
with Matthew, was keep it small, keep it all, or something to that effect.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, in other words, like, you know, when you're funding your own record or when you're running your own store, like that can be a boon for
Totally.
returns.
Big
And I
time.
think there's a lot of wisdom there. So
Yeah.
just to speak to what you're already mentioning, like
Exactly.
I'm sure that the band and, you know, any connected folks were like, yes, this is great.
Exactly. One of the things too that was also really great about the store, the online store, is that like when COVID hit, it was like, thank God we had that thing,
Mhm.
because like nobody eats without the online store for those 153 days or whatever, or 513 days, excuse me, like where there
Right.
was no shows.
And with the timeline, like it was going to be a big year, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
for Me Without You.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
because
So-
y'all
So-
had
I
the farewell
can't
tour.
imagine.
Yeah.
How,
Yeah, and so it's
important
one of
that
those
was.
things where it really saved our skins
Mhm.
during COVID, and it just continues to show returns, and that really has to go back to like, we really have this like cult following, and I'm so appreciative of people that are excited about the band and continue to be excited about the band, and like the merchandise that we put out. I'm not like selling like keychains and lighters and like, you know, plush dolls. You know, I'm selling
Cheap stuff,
t-shirts.
yeah.
I don't even have like a dad hat to sell. Do people call them dad hats? I don't even have a beanie on the store. I barely have a pullover. I sell t-shirts, you know, for the most
Mhm.
part, and records. So that's our bread and butter there. And people, you know, they buy it. And when they do that, I hope they're getting something they like, but they're really supporting the band still. Like, you know, guys still make, guys are still able to pull something from it. And that's just a big help. So it's been a lifesaver in terms of what it means to support ourselves and our families, and it just make our lives easier. It's certainly but actually, except for mine has been made far more difficult and stressful. And it's made my wife want to tear her hair out when a package comes
that
to the
seems
door.
like the eternal plight of
But
the
I like
manager.
the work. I like the work.
Hey,
In my mind, I imagine Ian from Spinal Tap with the cricket bat. Like it's just it's just such a specific, different vibe than everyone else has.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
But if you love it,
So okay, I want to do lightning round. Doesn't sound right, but
Okay.
I've got a couple more questions I want to ask.
Thunder
sure.
Round.
What's that?
Thunder Round.
Thunder round.
Okay, sure.
Hailstorm Round.
I
It
love
was a dark and
Even
stormy
better.
night round.
I'm trying to think of the
Oh,
Me
there
Without
we
You
are.
lyric that has it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But he got the five.
So,
He got the fire on one in there.
So
Right.
So
I'm hoping that's where this is headed.
it will. It will
Okay,
eventually.
cool.
Excellent. Yes.
Okay. So once again, I'm going to use the term practically, like on a day-to-day basis.
Minutia.
I want to know, as a manager of a band, of an American rock band, what is your
Is that from the Wikipedia? Are you quoting the Wikipedia?
No, I just
Kylan just loves that terminology.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
I think
applies that
it's-
to anyone. They could be from like Bulgaria, and he would call them
Okay,
American,
American
rock.
an
rock
American
band.
rock band.
Okay.
What is your favorite thing that you do, and what is your least favorite thing
Ooh, that's a great question.
that you do?
Well, I least favorite thing.
Yeah.
Well, I can answer
Is
the
it the
favorite
Red Bulls? It can be the Red Bulls. That's fine. I understand.
thing. Yeah, the Red Bulls. Probably not the answer. The least favorite thing. I don't know. I will get back to the least. But my favorite thing is the catalog. It's the records that we work on, right? So
Mhm.
when we did albums, right? When we wrote new records,
Mhm.
there's this the sense of enjoyment of getting the demos coming in and then hearing those demos turn into like songs when Aaron comes on them and rough mixes, and then the master comes through. That is such an exciting time for me because my creative juices get to flow. And this is where I sort of differentiate as a manager, is that I get to put on my creative hat, right? And I get to sort of like build around it. Now these songs are starting to have more and more context. So what does this album look like? What does the music video look like? What are the colors? What is the typography? What are we doing in terms of layout? What is the stage going to look like? What's the merchandise around it going to look like?
It's like essentially like starting a new business, like every album cycle.
Yeah. It's really just, exactly. It's like launching a new sort of like
brand
era or brand or, and that's like, that's the freaking best. Like, so cool. I love it. That's the best. And like, I still do it to a certain degree. Like did it with the Pale Horses reissue. It happened back in September. It's like, we're basically redesigning the collector's edition. We're souping up the standard vinyl. We put out the EP for the first time on a standalone disc, and like got to kind of build all those elements around it, and then the merchandise around it. Thinking about how like that when that stuff comes, man, it's like I don't want to stop. Like we redesigned the website for the launch, and we like had I developed the teasers and edit the teasers online, and so everything that comes around it. And I hope it doesn't sound like vain, but everything around it comes from me, essentially, and the people that I kind of hire out in my small little crew. I think I said maybe one time on Twitter, I hope MewithoutYou comes off as being run by 20 people and not just like some guy in his basement ignoring his family. Because the latter, and I'm like kind of paraphrasing, but the latter is true. Like I'm trying to make this thing look like it's bigger than it actually is. And so that's always been my goal, and I love that challenge. But how much can I do by myself, right? How much how much polish can I put on this thing? How much thought can go into this thing? Because the guys like all the stuff around it. They have opinions about it, but they're not involved with it. Aaron was the most involved in all that stuff, and later on, he fell more to the side as his life kind of took a different direction with his family and his career and outside of the band and teaching and whatnot. And so more of it fell on me and working with our designer, Charlie Wagers. And so I got to kind of like take over like art direction. And that is like far and away,
so rad.
The best part. It's like the reason I've been engaged for so long on it. Cause it's just like,
that's so cool.
I get to feel like I have real ownership of that.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking to 3 totally DIY guys here. Who are like, okay, well, maybe I can learn this skill to help push something. Like, it's just like that challenge is so incredible. It's just
it's awesome. It's great.
2 things I'll say to sort of stick the landing that I think you were looking for. Like, it is effective. All the work you've done, at least from one schmuck's opinion, but like it comes across as very slick, very thoughtful, very put together.
Cool.
Every release, like I don't know, all the stuff you're putting out there is so incredible.
It's been part of what has engaged me about a band that I loved when I was 18. You know what I mean? Like, it's been able
like,
to,
that's huge.
To grow. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the second thing I was going to say is like Kylan's a designer too. So you like, he's like lapping all of this up as you.
Oh, cool.
It's so rad. It's so rad. I love every second of it. Okay. I want to know your least favorite thing.
Oh, it's packaging up records, like the records themselves.
Oh, for sure.
Like actually packaging them up is.
It's a double-edged sword.
I will, because it's like, it's like, these reissues are selling great, or like, oh my gosh, like holiday, like it's Christmas time soon, and like online store will go nuts, and like I will literally, like I will lose feeling in my wrists.
Oh no!
Like I'll get what do they call it? Not carpal tunnel, but like I don't know what do they. My wife's here. What do you call it when you get like the thing? It's like repetitive stress injury. I'll get like I'll wake up in the morning and can't like feel my wrists because I've just been like bending boxes and Yeah, I actually got like the little braces and put them on,
There you go.
just to help
Shoot.
get feeling back. Anyway, so
for
that's
you,
the
man.
that's
Getting old
the
is a
worst
bitch,
part.
man.
That's the
Yeah,
worst part of it. But
Yeah.
I like stocking all of the records, and I like having like a storage space that's just like filled with stuff, and
Oh
like
yeah,
Right.
It's
that
gotta be
feels
so
really good.
satisfying.
So rad.
So
Totally.
satisfying. Yeah, to be organized and
Yeah.
it's good. It's good. But I hate packaging up the records and t-shirts. Oh, I'll do 100 a day. It's no problem. Just find
Right.
stuff in the Tyvek envelopes and sending them out. It's
Yeah.
fun.
There you go.
Or it's easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do want to get into, like I mentioned at the very beginning of the episode, you did the artwork and layout for Engine of a Million Plots.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't do the artwork. Right, I did the art direction for it
art
specifically.
direction.
It is the
Okay.
illustrations are
Yeah.
done by Doug Tenapel.
Mhm.
Sweet. Okay, I had a personal headcanon theory
Mm-hmm.
that
Oh, is this about which song inspired?
yes,
We
okay.
Own the
Was there a
Skies is what you were
specific
saying.
song
Yeah.
on that album that inspired that artwork,
Or
or
the vibe of the
or was
art.
it just
Oh,
the
boy.
vibe of the album?
Let me see if I can dig into my notes.
Mm.
Fucking love
Because
notes.
cool, yeah. Let me go. So if you allow me a second here, I'll tell you this right now.
Please.
Like so working with Doug, he's a great illustrator.
Hmm.
He's an incredible, iconic illustrator, in my opinion. But like, he didn't ask for any money for it, right? He didn't want any money for it. He just
Wow.
wanted
Right.
to do it. And sometimes, but when that happens, that means I don't want your money because I don't want the obligation to listen to you. I'm just going to do what I want to do, and I'm glad to do it.
Oh, more
But I'm not
creative
taking
freedom.
not
Yeah.
taking notes. I'm not being held. I don't need the money, right?
Okay.
But I'm happy to do it. So when I do like direction and stuff like that, I get an idea. Like, I have to use another person as like my hands. So
Mhm.
just because I either don't have the skill level or I don't have the time. And so, and
Right.
I certainly don't have like, my work doesn't look like Doug's work at all. Like, not even remotely.
Yeah.
Even to say that
Different style.
sentence, the sentence is ridiculous. It's like, I'm not even on the same planet. It's not
Right.
even,
Right.
I'm not an illustrator. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
So like, I can't do it, but I want to like him to hear what I'm saying, or,
Mhm.
you know, what I'm putting into the,
Yeah, you want him
into
to
my-
breathe
into my
life
emails.
into your idea.
into the idea. And that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do.
For
Just
sure.
trying to bring that stuff out. Where would I have this? It doesn't matter. Listen, I was very much inspired by sort of, it's hard to find a friend,
Mm.
Okay.
and that sort of illustrative style where it's like each panel tells a story. And I
Mhm.
wanted there to be like 4 panels that kind of like told a story of one of these songs. And one of them was "We Own the Skies."
Yes.
There you go.
You did
Yeah.
call it Kylan.
Validation.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find something here real quick.
Because I was gonna say, like, we talk a lot on that episode about how a lot of the songs sort of coalesce into similar imagery, and you know, there's obviously a connective theme. The
Yeah.
dark, cold nights, the winter, the snow, the fire, the
Yes.
light, like kind of pushing back on the darkness.
Exactly. And that's all Reese, right? That's all Reese
Right.
and Scott, because he wrote like
Right.
Scott wrote Blizzards and Bygones,
Blizzards. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
which is such a good song. I can't find my
It
notes right
is.
now. But the idea was that like basically I would take images from like "We Own the Skies," and like there was this idea of like this, I had all these like paragraphs being like, and there's a city in the background, like
Mhm.
in the foreground it's like a field of like corn or maize or whatever, and there are farmers in the market. We're showing this like disparity between like agrarian culture and this like cosmopolitan lifestyle. Like this is like
Yeah,
things
right.
I was trying to do here. You know, there was stuff like you would show the interior of a high-rise apartment, and like this is like I Am Jack Smirking Revenge. Like you kind of had all these
Mm-hmm.
images that are coming in. So I wrote all this stuff to Doug. Here's what I want to see. Here's what I'm picturing.
Right.
And then he was like, "Cool. Here's what I'm sending you." And so so once he sent that to me, it was stuff that I hadn't thought of. Like the cover was like trying to think.
Like because it was so sparse
I'm trying to remember
in style.
that time. Well, I know that I wanted Doug's stuff because his work was the best work of any. Like all the hype, such a silly cover.
Yeah.
Like Electric Boogaloo is like it's fine, but like
Right.
bringing this back to sort of mewithoutYou too, like the continuity is important.
Mm-hmm.
MewithoutYou, because this is a broader idea too. Like the continuity between each album is that mewithoutYou's like typeface, their logo, their font, whatever you want to call it, their word mark does not change. Like it takes on different styles. Like, oh, this one's like tattered. This one's slick. And this one has a different filigree underneath it. But like it's all Mrs. Eve's italics.
Yes,
like,
it's Mrs. Eve's. Okay, I'm so sorry.
You thought
it
was Baskerville? You thought it was Baskerville?
No. I thought it was Mrs. Eve's.
Yeah,
and okay, so for all of our episodes, I Photoshop like one of our faces or like something silly, and I dug so deep. I was like trying to find. This is literally for no one but me. And
I was going to say we have one listener left, and it's Joe.
It's Joe. It's Joe. I'm so glad that Mrs. Eves was right. Okay, I'm glad I called that font.
Mrs. Eves ital.
She's one of the East End wives.
And then there's a bunch of different faces on there too. Like Anyway, so it's always that, and it's always the same artists, right? It's always Vasily Kafanov, right? Mm-hmm. Even when we reissued the EP that I Never Said I Was Brave EP back in 2016, like we had him come back and like redo the artwork. So like we retroactively made him a part of all of those records, and that continuity speaks to like the sort of broader picture of that. Like when you zoom out, you can see consistency. There's a through line.
Exactly.
Through line.
So was that a conscious decision from the band as a whole? Like that is something that like all of y'all had conversations about?
I can only speak to brother, sister, and on, but it was just like I can remember like Mike and Aaron like going through the Vasily's website, Kavanov.com, and just like, what do you think about this one? Oh, we can get this one. Oh, we like this. Right? Like brother, sister didn't even have a title. Like they chose the album artwork, and then like lyrics got written around, and then the lyrics kind of like, oh, this is brother, sister. There are all sorts of silly names for it. The music our collisions make. Mike suggested The Hope is in the chorus. Animals was another one. But these are all like, I mean, the people in the band won't even know that, right? That's just like stuff that like I had overheard. There's discussions about that. Yeah.
So then, how do you go about from that point where it's almost sort of a given within the culture of the band of like, okay, we love this artist. It seems to like their work seems to fall in line with what we're doing. Like, how do you go about commissioning future artwork from there? Like, what does that communication look like?
Let me say this real quick. Again, going back to sort of the through line, I just want to finish the thought there, and then I'll address that. With Five Iron, it was one of those things where it's like, that was important to me. Like, that was important to me that like Doug be the artist on the record, because our newest album ever, the Quantity EP, The End Is Near, all that stuff, like that. Like those records have the coolest looking artwork. They all feel like Five Iron. When they used Pixie as the typeface for, it felt like Five Iron, right? It felt like this is a part of this. This is their body of work, right? And bodies of work are really important to me. Yeah. And so when we went back and did the Five Iron record, I relinquished on doing the Pixie font, but like knew that I wanted Doug because that felt like that was actually a thing. And plus, I wasn't even going to put the album title or the band name on the record cover itself,
right?
Which is another sort of that's the mewithoutYou influence there,
right?
So I wanted to kind of like bring back some of this like the continuity and the context of the work, the body of work, and like one of the great things about Engine of a Million Plots is that as a fan, like in middle school or high school, I always imagined that like Five Iron would be something they weren't. Like they could kind of like be a cooler band. Like I enjoyed their humor, but like some of it is just it's just goofy. It's just silly.
Right.
It's unserious. And like when you go from like your opening track in your first record is about like manifest destiny and like the slaughtering of American Indians, and then this is like
you saw some substance in them.
You saw some substance. You're like there's like
you can get there.
Yeah, there's like there's a social conscious. There is anger. There is there's like a thirst for justice, and it's like they're also like digging into stuff that like that's the first time I had ever heard of anything like that. And so they're like illuminating stuff, and there's like a viscerality to it. So like that element of 5 Iron, I was like, I like that. I like that it challenges me. I could do without Phantom Mullet and like any of that kind of stuff. I want to hear songs like Fahrenheit off of All the Hype and 451. Like I think that those are the parts where like that band's. So like when we got to work on the Engine record, it was like even getting down to like that was Reese's title, Engine of a Million Plots. And it was like, that's a cool sounding title. I don't know what the heck it means, but like I do know what it means. It basically just means like it's about interpretation. An Engine of a Million Plots is that you would just be able to look at this thing, any amount of people could extrapolate different meanings from it. And so
love it.
I just thought it sounded really cool. And it had an edge to it. And then I was like, let's make this a darker record. Like we were trying to get Battle of Dancing Unicorn off of the album. Like there was like Scott was really bummed that it was on the record because Scott wrote the song, he loved it, and then Reese is like, "What's Reese putting this silly crap on it?"
Right,
and it's the only silly song on it, and maybe there's a couple of goofy lyrics that are kind of find their way, cringy lyrics that find their way on the record, but like I got to kind of like mold that record in a way that I've never really got to do with any Me Without You record. Even I have a lot of influence inside Me Without You in terms of how things are thought about or get tracked or how they're sequenced.
But it's a different dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Different band.
Oh, they were totally like 5 Iron was like totally just like, hey, we hired you, so we're just gonna listen to you. None of those they're wonderful, but none of them can like you can't make a decision to save their lives. Sometimes they're democratic, and that's that
sense from
Leonore.
Yeah, we interviewed Leonore, and she kind of spoke to that a little bit as well.
Yeah, no, it's the most insane, silly thing. Like all that does is it just creates more animosity.
Yeah, because
it's the band where it's
a
like
spectrum,
I got
right?
outvoted. Yeah,
there's either too much like democracy happening and like everybody gets a say, or there's not enough, and you gotta like find that balance.
In Me Without You, the structure was never democratic. There's times I go, let's take a vote, and everyone was like, vote. No, it's about finding compromise, but it's also kind of just like letting the person who is the most passionate about it kind of like lead in a way. So it's like, oh, you guys, we like this cover of the album. We like this for the cover of the album. And it's like, well, we have a really specific idea about this. Aaron and I really like this idea. And then it's just like, we're not going to fight with these guys. So like, let's just like, and they're just not.
Whoever is the most articulate about their argument.
Thank you.
Yes, sure.
Whoever
they get
keeps
the room.
talking about it and talking about it and saying why it needs, that's who's going to win. So that's kind of, that's how it worked on that record. And like Blizzards and Bygones was like, some people wanted to be the first track. And I was like, we need a first track? Like, yeah, no, we want to end with a more hopeful tone. I was like, ain't nothing interesting about that. Like, why don't you ask a question at the end of your record instead of making some sort of like pronouncement about hope and love and this and like this? It's like, why don't you just leave them with like this like sad song about can you last forever? Or can you stand the weather if winter lasts forever? It's like that's far more interesting
episode,
to me than,
we talked about how compelling that was as a decision to end with that question.
I pushed for it pretty hard.
I love that this is the episode following our episode on that record, which worked out perfectly. We didn't really plan out. I'd like to take credit for that, but we did not.
Serendipity, baby.
But I can go back to that question about commissioning stuff.
What
was the question? I'm sorry. I wanted to just
it doesn't matter. What you said was like way more interesting.
Was 10 Stories the first ones where y'all like would go to Vasily and be like, hey, we kind of want this? Was that the first one?
Yeah,
Okay.
one of the things here is that, like, Tooth and Nail had always facilitated the paying for everything. Me that you never had money laying around to like pay for an artist to do X, Y, and Z. The bank account was always at zero. You go on tour, you make some money, cut equal checks across the board. See you next time. Like, not a great way to run a business. And I say that because we were trying to do a self release. I'm like, what are you paying artists? What do artists need? Like, and so I contacted the seal and I said, hey, I'm Mike from Me Without You. I manage the band now, and we're going to put out a record, and it's very specific, and we wanted to. It's a concept record, and we wanted to like commission your painting or lots of paintings for like this thing. I don't know what it would cost to do, but I can tell you right now, I can update your website.
Nice.
And so I got this guy, Jim Krill, who's like a Me Without You fan, and he helped me build out Vasili's website on like WordPress. And now there's like a million sites that you can do it. Like,
amazing.
Right.
Anybody,
Yeah.
you can go to, are they a Squarespace? Are they a sponsor here, guys? Squarespace, you can just go, you don't even need doing a website for you with a tricky back end and like all this. Just go on Squarespace and do it. Squarespace. Save you 20% with the offer code Church Jams Now.
Church Jams Now.
Yeah, Church
Maybe
Jams Now
someday.
11. Yeah. Yeah, so I contacted him about that, and that kind of started that relationship. Because before that, it was like, I don't know if anyone had ever even spoken to him personally. Just a guy, he licensed his work.
Yeah.
And he knew that we had done it 4 times prior.
Right.
But that was the time we really had like a relationship with him, a conversation with him. And he would send us, oh, here's this and here's this, and then Aaron and I would send notes back and get a different version of what he was doing. And he would turn it out so quick. It's like, oh my God, I don't know if this is anything for him. But he is just like, that's like, when I talk about Aaron not being a writer, well, Vasili is a painter. Like,
Yeah.
Wake up in the morning. He is an artist, a visual artist. Has to put a pen to paper, has to put ink on it, has to put, acrylic on a canvas, has to do something. It's just in him in a different way.
So my biggest takeaway from all this is like, I feel like manager of a band is one of those things that everyone is sort of like vaguely aware of, but just like how much it is facilitating creative expression and like and how goddamn fucking important that is for any sort of creative process. It's wild to me that Me Without You as a band did not have a relationship with Vasili until,
as far as I know, and I don't think that they really.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that like it's like maybe an email was exchanged once. Hey, this is cool. There's nothing like, but we now have his phone number. Like we know his family. He comes to shows. He calls me and texts me to see how I'm doing.
And that speaks to not only the ethos of Me Without You as a band, but your position within it. I'm gassing you up a little bit. I just think it's so fucking rad, man. I like
cool.
Like that's so fucking cool.
Very cool.
And I think more than just the 3 of us being like, that's cool. I think like the fandom that you talked about being the fact that you've seen this kind of cult following that feels very connected, that has a sense of ownership and love and true like ownership over what Me Without You has been over the years and continues to be, I think speaks to how you all kind of banded together and created something that's bigger than the sum of its parts, right?
Yeah.
And even goes beyond any live iteration of the band, or maybe, fingers crossed that'll exist again. But even if it doesn't, man, like it's something special. And the aesthetic component, the visual aesthetic component, deepening the mythology and the interaction that the fans get to have with that music. I mean, it's huge, man.
I agree. I think that's because I think, the show is ephemeral. Like it just, it comes and it goes in a moment. And so the things that kind of are a literal record of
Right.
the work
A touch
is
point.
is the albums that you put out. And
Yeah.
so they need to communicate something on top of just the music news
Right.
is there, and that's obviously the bedrock of it. But everything around it needs to support it and build it up, and that's why I think the continuity of the catalog is so important. Like Tarantino is a filmmaker who is like famously said, "I'm only going to make 10 films." It's like, why are you going to make 10 films? He's like,
Right.
you can make, you know what? He's like, well, 10 is a good number. I think Brad Pitt said in the interview, he's like, 12 is also a good number. 15 is a fine number too, right? But I think it's the idea that like 10 being this like finality, and like he has all these movies, and like, you know that there's only going to be 10 Tarantino. So they become more special. And there's a similar thing in Me Without You where like, I feel like, well, I have specifically tried to develop where we refer to, if you look on our website, you'll see like, you go to the, you'll see, EP1 is, I Never Said I Was Brave. And, LP4 is It's All Crazy. Like we kind of like break it down where it's like, like Tarantino does, where it's like the 9th film from Quentin Tarantino.
Right.
It's like, this is me. That in LP1 is a very simple way of saying this is the first album. Lots of bands do that as like a working title and stuff like that. But we very specifically have tried to create this idea that like, this is the catalog. There's 3 EPs. And there are 7 full lengths. And like, yes, there are singles, but like, you're not going to get like Hatful of Hollow out of the band where there's just like a ton of, here are the singles from You That You that were the B-sides. It's not like the Smiths. It's not like something like that where it's just
John
like,
Peel sessions.
The catalog is so vast.
Release after release after release.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can listen to the 4 Smiths albums and then be like, you're telling me there's like 100 other songs? It's like, where do they go?
Right.
Me Without You when they write a record, it's like they wrote 11 songs. Like there is like 1 B-side for Catch Us the Foxes, and no one's ever heard it because it got like this. Well, it got lost on a hard drive. Hard drive got corrupted. Never got to hear it. Right. It was actually called Messes of Men, and it was not. It was a different version of that song. Parts of it showed up, I think, in February and other parts. But like they come with a really small amount of music, and so it is precious in a way. And like it's only in the end when we started doing like these like deluxe editions or collector's editions, and we sold the Pale Horses record as like a deluxe edition because it had the appendix on it. But there was still like there's consternation around that where it's like we very intentionally put it on a separate disc, and we very intentionally, when we released it digitally, didn't make it the Pale Horses Deluxe Edition. We contextualize it as the appendix EP. And so like we want to separate these things because the Killers, talking about the Killers, they put out Pressure Machine Deluxe Edition. And it's like, cool. It's like, there's like 7 more alternate versions. By the way, they wrote like 5 versions of the Getting By. And I'm like, they all sound like wildly different songs. I'm like, I don't know how this is possible, but great. But I don't need that showing up in my iTunes.
Yeah, it's a little bewildering, right? Like it's hard to process.
Like, why are there 3 versions? There's 3 versions at least of Pressure Machine.
Right.
The
unabridged,
the unabridged, the abridged. Now this deluxe edition. Maybe there's a abridged deluxe edition.
Oh my god!
And so I don't know if there is or not. But my point is, it's just too much.
Yep.
When you search Me Without You, I want you to see 7 albums and 3 EPs.
Yep. There's no need for the doom scroll. Like I don't know. I don't want to be like a relic, but at the same time, I kind of want to reject wholesale the idea of just like content on content on content.
Yeah.
That our culture is so obsessed with right now. I don't need the doom scroll. I don't want it. Just give me quality content and it will suffice.
Yeah.
Whatever quantity it is. If it's quality, that's what matters. And
sure.
Y'all are a perfect example of that.
Yeah, the Tarantino example is perfect. Like
yes.
the intentionality
knew that would speak to you.
of it all. Yeah, it
and we didn't set
really
out like Tarantino to make 7 albums and 3 EPs. It's just that's the number it is. Like
right. But in retrospect, when you realize what that thing is, right, then represent it correctly.
Yes,
and you have,
Yeah, that's been the goal. And like I said, I feel like it makes it just feel like it's more solid. It's more thoughtful. There's not a bunch of sprigs and
Right.
shoots of the tree going out in every direction.
Yeah.
There is some of that. I mean, we do have like singles and stuff like that are
Right.
floating out there, but
it's like it's a part of like an already what I feel like fans perceive as an incredibly thoughtful band. I think that just adds to that. You know what I mean? Like, and it resonates with a specific sect of fandom. You know what I mean? Like, once again, like I said, like Me Without You fans are like die hard.
Yeah.
And you know, they're never gonna be the numbers of like a, I don't know why
Swifties.
Coldplay, yeah, or like Taylor Swift, but like
Swifty,
but it's like, but that's not the point.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yes,
It's quality over quantity, and I think that's why for all three of us, like Me Without You as a band has resonated for as long.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it stood the
as
test of
they
time,
have.
particularly. Like, there's not a lot of bands that I kind of
Started in
jumped
2001.
into. Yeah, and then stuck with.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
we'll still listen to them, on my deathbed, I'm sure.
Yo, wow, we're going there
Yeah.
already.
I mean,
yeah.
I think
Oh, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so. I think I
Yeah.
can confidently say that.
I think so.
All
On
right,
our
cool.
shared deathbed, we're just
Yes,
gonna
all
play
of
brother sister.
That's
All
the
four of
cutest
us.
thing I've ever heard. Yeah, all four of us.
All four
On
of us
Zoom.
Yeah, on Zoom.
It'll be like connected to our brains at that point, but
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We'll be Neuralinked in.
Yep.
There's something I wanted to jump off with there too. That
Hell yeah.
I can't remember.
Go for it.
Oh, I know what it was, but it's stupid. Do you guys
No,
really think
say
that is Kill Bill? Is it one or two movies? Like,
It's one.
come on, it's
It's
two
one
movies. It has
It's
two
one.
credits. It has two credit sequences.
It was a
Like,
studio
you-
decision. He made it as one.
Okay, sounds to me like two films then. Like, until he releases a super cut of Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2,
1 and 2
It's
mixed together.
two-
It's
it-
two movies.
it's
I like the supercut
one-
idea to kind of like contextualize it, but it
works,
doesn't exist
It works
yet.
best. It's going to work better as two. I mean, it's not in terms of like recutting all the sequences all across the films in a different sort of like. I mean, that'd be an interesting practice,
Yeah.
but it's two films. It's such cheating.
All right,
it's
y'all,
so-
y'all heard it
So
here
he's,
first.
so he's
It's
already at
such-
10
and
in
Death
your
Proof
mind.
is
My-
Death Proof
my-
a full length feature?
Well, because it was part of the Grindhouse thing. Well, okay, so to go back to the intentionality of it, as a filmmaker who has been very intentional about his entire filmography, I think the fact that Kill Bill did come in two parts, I think there's something to be said about, like, there had to be a part of Tarantino that intended it that way.
Knew that it was going to land.
But then you
like
don't
that.
get to say yeah. And to what he intended as 1 4-hour film or 5-hour film. Is that what you're saying?
No.
There he
I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that even if it was a studio decision, I think it's something that, to go back to the Me
anticipated.
Without You of it all, it's like it's technical and vibe. And I think he maybe picked up that, like, okay, this is the vibe. Well, I'm going to go all in, and this is the vibe, and we're going to maybe ascribe meaning to it after the fact, but
retro.
it's still the meaning.
I see what you're saying.
Uh-huh.
But weren't they? Yeah, were they not? Yeah, because I guess they didn't really do they weren't numbering Tarantino films until like
It was
after Kill Bill, were they?
Yeah, it was
Oh
like
no, they
after,
did
like,
Yeah, he didn't announce it 10 until later, right?
Okay.
it was like Hateful Eight, maybe, was when
Yeah.
he was like, I'm only gonna do 10.
That was when I was aware of the numbering. Was Hateful
But
Eight.
he would do like the 5th film from Tarantino. He would do that
Right.
early on,
Yeah,
and then I think
yeah.
he probably thought like we cap it off maybe at 10,
Right.
the 10th
Maybe.
film. But I'm just saying it's a
Mhm.
little bit of cheating.
It's a
Maybe a
gray
little bit.
area.
He's
Yeah.
right, in my opinion, he's made 9.5 films already, or 10.5. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
So he only gets a half film left.
he only gets a half film. Yeah,
Yeah,
he has to do Death Proof Part 2.
Hey, I'm not opposed. Okay, so this seems like we've been talking a while. I think we're gonna maybe kind of wrap it up around
Okay,
here.
that's fine.
So, Mike, is there anything you want to let our listeners be aware of? Is there anything? I don't know. I just feel so weird with like plugs,
Yeah, I don't really have a
as
plug.
they put it. I mean,
No, I don't really have a plug.
do you want people to
Yeah,
like follow you on Twitter or anything? If there's
sure, if
anything
you want to, yeah.
specifically,
Mike,
is
at Mike Almquist. I'm not that active right now for some reason.
well,
I'm just
because
busy
Twitter
in my own
sucks
life.
now. I mean,
Yeah, I think Twitter's better than ever, to be quite honest.
oh wow, okay, we run in very different circles.
Outside of outside of the insane decision to rebrand, if you even call it a
X,
rebrand,
Yeah.
X. Oh,
it's
yeah.
that's
I
the,
can't.
is
I can't
literally
get
one of
into
that is the stupidest thing. It
Mhm.
is. It is like it is.
Mike looks pained.
It was
Yes,
one of those
it
things where
is.
it's like, okay, like Elon Musk, he's an interesting character. Seems to be pretty smart, and like, yeah, he's got some really kind of like outside their opinions, or like he pushes boundaries. But I appreciate all that stuff. But then he like when he announced a couple of things, like when you're like, oh, verified people are now paying for it, I was like kind of head scratchy. It's like, yeah, I kind of see where you're getting at here, but like, I don't know if it's going to work out the way you think it is, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then like when he was like, we're no longer using the bird logo, we're changing the name to X.
to X.
I was like, this man has no taste.
No,
This
exactly.
man has no taste, and he has no
Never
idea
did.
what brand. He has no idea. Maybe we undervalue what brand. Maybe we overvalue what brands are.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I also don't hear anybody calling Twitter X.
No.
No,
Never.
no.
No.
People
No,
have
and that's what's
completely
insane
rejected
about
it.
it.
Yep.
Right.
It's insane. And then we're still doing. It still says X on my phone when I
Mhm.
dial
Yeah.
up Twitter. It's
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
so perplexing. So I'm not
It's-
on X. I'm on Twitter, and I hope
For
I don't
sure.
sound goofy with that. But I'm not that active right now on there, just because I'm busy and I haven't found things
Right.
that
That's fine.
I stopped tweeting about Disneyland. I feel like people didn't like me talking about Disneyland, which is like one of my favorite things in the world. But I post about mewithoutYou stuff, and then I get tons of engagement. But then I feel like I'm exploiting the band in some sort of way, or I don't know. It's what people
I
follow.
don't think
It's what people follow me for. I know that.
Yeah. You're just as much a part of it, and you're like a mouthpiece too for the band,
Mhm.
probably in a way that they wouldn't be for themselves, and
Mm.
I think
Yeah.
it's entirely appropriate. So my question would be maybe not a personal plug, but what's like a merch item from the store that you're really stoked on that
I mean,
folks
Ooh,
should go
that's
Pale
get?
good.
Horses.
That's good,
The
TG.
Pale Horses Collector's Edition,
There you go.
Okay.
I think
That's it.
it's easily been the most revised and proofed of any of them by far.
Okay.
By far, it's a very personal record for me because I love that album, and it's also the record I feel like is the best sonically of any of their albums, and it's so strong, and I love the album artwork, and I love everything about what we did. I like it so much more than 10 Stories, and I like it. It's like my catch. It's like I feel like I have ownership over my
Right.
Catch Trust the Foxes, which was the record.
That's so good.
I feel like it's on par with that album, so I'm like so
Yes.
stoked about it. I treat all the records with a lot of like attention to detail, but like I definitely was like overboard on the Pale Horses stuff. Like I was like obsessive. It's one of the things tricky about it too is that I try and make the EP and the album feel like they are a part of the whole, like they are connected, but yet are disparate. And so like I was like painstaking in terms of alignments. So like they're like pixel perfect. I mean, things are still going to shift a 16th of an inch when you print stuff, but like I was like, this has to be like dead on. Margins have to be the same. This has to be like this. Da, 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 da. So when you put the two things together, they look like they're supposed to be together. And we took that just to the nth degree on the collector's editions. We just added more and more and more and more and more stuff. Like I'll be quite honest. What's today's date? Today's the 14th of November. We only finished proofing the last element, I want to say like 3-4 days ago, which is embarrassing because it really should have been done 2 months ago. But we just kept working on. Oh, my headphones just went out. I'm really, really stoked for when that comes out. I think it's going to be the best of our collector's editions. Yeah. I don't know. I'm stoked on it. But I'll say this, because when's this going to come out? When's this podcast?
29th.
The 29th?
Last Wednesday this month.
Okay, cool. And now I'm sorry, I guess my headphones just
or completely dead. I don't know what's going
No,
on.
that's fine.
Kick
Okay.
the bucket.
But like I'm doing something that like I think is really, really, really funny. I'm doing a Black Friday sale on the Me That You thing, but we're doing it's like a Hallmark ad, like a Christmas
Yes.
Hallmark ad.
Yes.
It's not like it's like somewhere between like a J. Crew commercial and a Hallmark Christmas movie ad. It's really off-brand and it's really out there,
Oh,
but
I
we're
can't
just
wait.
being goofy. We're having fun with it. I'm having fun with it, and so
That's
like
what
I'm
matters.
very excited about people being like, "What the hell is this thing?" I'm very excited about what people are going to think of the Black Friday sale, which it sounds so stupid, a Black Friday sale, but I'm trying to make it more than something as crass as a sale. I'm trying to make it more of an event, something tongue in cheek, something that like gets people engaged in a way that's just like, I don't know. You can have
Yeah,
fun with it.
you're playing with the form. You're like
Trying
having
to.
fun with it.
Yes,
So
exactly.
people are going to catch that, and they're
Yeah,
gonna love it.
I assume they will.
Yeah.
I just don't think they'll expect it.
Yeah. Oh,
No,
yeah. It's
definitely
going to
not.
blindside
Yeah.
people in the best way.
I think
But
so.
I feel like y'all, that's just like par for the course. Like
Yeah.
I've felt that way multiple times with, announcements and releases from
Well,
you guys.
and
so.
even when like y'all did the music video for Julia, it's like doing the
Yes.
Back to the Future thing. Like if anyone else would have done that, it would have felt like a little like, okay, I see what you're doing here, but like there's
That
an
was
art
so
from
good.
like like Me Without You is not just gonna like cash in. Like they're gonna do it for a reason, and even if you did it the same way, it feels different because of how y'all are doing it.
Yeah, we're trying.
That was a blast.
Yeah.
The Back to the Future thing. That was pretty much me and Aaron. Just
Nice.
like with that
It's
idea. And
genius.
then worked
Yeah,
on it with our
so good.
director to kind of finesse some of the stuff in there. But gosh, that was
The enchantment at the bottom of the made up ocean is so good.
Yes.
This is so good.
It's
Very
the
cool.
best.
Happy you guys enjoy it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
We're big time fans here.
Yep.
Okay, so if you enjoyed this, we have much more nonsense like this at patreon.com/churchjamesnowpodcast. You can of course follow us on all the social media at Church James Now. Follow Mike for more
Me Without You
stuff.
insider information.
Yeah.
A defunct band from
Mike, it has been an incredible pleasure having
Cool.
you
Yes.
on this
And
show.
Thank you guys very much.
Incredible. Thank you.
This has been one of my favorite
Thank you
episodes
for all you
of,
do,
of the
have
year.
done for Me Without You, and all you continue to do for Me
Right
Without
on.
You.
For sure. Okay, may all your favorite bands stay together, and of course, peace out, Mon Frères.
Peace.
Church Jams now.
The raccoon is gone.
It's not a raccoon. This is the most Arkansas shit ever.
possum?
I have a family
What
of
is it?
armadillos that apparently
way.
lives in my yard.
Oh, very cool.
I went out there with the flashlight, and there's like 6 goddamn armadillos just hanging out in my yard. My wife is
What?
gone. My dog is losing her shit.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
A bunch of
Basically.
armadillos. It's all crazy. It's all false.
Yeah.
It's all false.
all
It's all a dream.
armadillos.
It's all right.
Yeah.
It's all
Uh,
armadillos.
yeah, it's a family of armadillos.
Armadillos all the way down.
I didn't.
That's crazy. So how many is a family? Is it a family of 4?
No, there's 6 of them.
6 of them. Okay, you said
That's
that
so
There are
already.
2
many.
big ones and 4 little ones.
That's
Mm.
kind of adorable.
Yeah,
It is.
no, I know.
Like you can't even be mad, really. It's
No, I
just like,
can't. I can't.
oh,
I kind of love
they're
it.
so cute.
I almost just opened the basement door and just,
Come on in, guys.
You want to be on
Yeah.
the pod?
which would feel appropriate for talking about Me Without You.
For-
Yeah.